In Venezuela, the public prosecutor's office requested the arrest of 3 former deputies who were part of the board of directors of the opposition National Assembly elected in 2015 for usurpation. In Brazil, social movements mobilized to defend democracy and reject fascist and violent actions carried out by Bolsonaro supporters. And in Rwanda, President Paul Kagame said the country can no longer accept refugees from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela, Attorney General Tarek William Saab said on Monday that his office has requested a red alert to Interpol against the board of directors of the extinct National Assembly of 2015. The red alert adds to a measure of seizure and securing of assets, the blocking and immobilization of accounts, and abandoning, transferring, and encumbering. Saab also said his office has issued outstanding arrest warrants against former deputies Dinora Figuera, Marianela Fernandez, and Auristela Vázquez, for they made up the board of directors of the National Assembly that expired in 2020. He then added that the so-called interim government was a criminal organization which used politics to defraud Venezuela to the tune of $2.7 billion for public funds.
Therefore, we have prosecuted them and have requested them respective arrest warrants, which have already been processed by the court for the crimes of usurpation of functions, treason, money laundering, and association to commit crime. I want to emphasize that these 3 citizens live abroad, 2 in Spain and 1 in the United States. We will see what these countries will do regarding this request that the Public Prosecutor Office has made, not only for an arrest warrant, but also request for a red alert to Interpol.
Venezuela's Attorney General added other members of the illegitimate National Assembly of the 2015 were also targeted.
There are also arrest warrants against the pretended secretary of the illegitimate
The President of the National Assembly of Venezuela, Jorge Rodriguez, presented a new board of directors of the legislative body at a press conference on Monday. The President of the Assembly presented the new leadership during an address at the Federal Legislative Palace in Caracas. He ensured his efforts during this new session will be centered on legislating over 20 new laws, mainly focused on strengthening the people's power. On January 5th, the National Assembly, in its first plenary session of 2023, ratified Deputy Jorge Rodriguez as its president for the 2023 to 2024 parliamentary term.
It turns out that the right wing, its primary intention is not to recognize, but to promote killing and burning. Something as serious as this has happened in recent days against the government lawfully elected on January 1st in Brazil, with the president elected by the vote of the people, Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva. Then we want to denounce and condemn the terrible and fascist actions in Brazil.
Meanwhile, the President of the National Assembly of Venezuela, Jorge Rodriguez, denounced and rejected the action of the far right in Brazil against the legislative government of President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva. Organizations mobilized to defend democracy and reject fascist and violent actions carried out by Bolsonaro groups. Several municipalities in the country are the scene of demonstrations in which popular and political groups reject the coup attempt while denouncing the violent action of Bolsonaro's followers as a criminal attempt. The demonstrators demand that all those responsible for the assault on the headquarters of the 3 federal powers be punished and that there is no amnesty for those who encouraged the attacks. As part of the investigation process, the federal police reported on Monday the arrest of 300 supporters of the former president who were taken to the security headquarters. Sunday's violent assault on the 3 seats of political power in Brasilia by Bolsonaro supporters damaged much of the historical and artistic heritage as well as the private rooms in which the highest authorities work on a daily basis. The list includes paintings, sculptures, glass, doors, windows, computers, televisions, and all kinds of furniture from these futuristic buildings designed by the famous architect Oscar Niemeyer. At the Planalto Palace, not even the painting of Las Muradas by painter D. Cavalcanti was spared. Other works of art were destroyed in the cabinet of the Minister of the Secretariat of Communication, and the room of the First Lady, Rosangela Silva, was also seriously damaged. Rioters entered the room of the Institutional Security Cabinet of the Presidency of the Republic, where they not only ransacked but also stole weapons and ammunition. The historic photo gallery of Brazilian presidents that adorns the Planalto lobby was also ruined. In Peru, protests against Dina Boluarte's government continue for the fifth consecutive day. Authorities registered nearly 70 injuries as a result of police repression. According to the Health Ministry, police repression left 67 injured in the last few days in the regions of Arequipa, Lima, Apurimac, and Puno. The latter registering the most injuries. Transport authorities said 45 locations in 6 regions registered interrupted traffic due to road blockades. In this contest, demonstrators demand the closing of Congress and early general elections. At the same time, different sectors of civil society denounced the use of firearms by security forces during the repression that has left more than 40 dead since the ousting and imprisonment of former President Pedro Castillo. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. The President of Chile, Gabriel Boric, received his Colombian counterpart Gustavo Petro in his first state visit to the country with the goal of strengthening relations between the two nations. Through his official Twitter account, the presidential office announced the Colombian president was received by his Chilean counterpart La Moneda Presidential Palace in Santiago. The meeting, which took place within the framework of the historical strengthening and shared values between the two countries, highlighted issues such as democracy, the environment, inclusive development, and social justice. Gustavo Petro began his first state visit to Chile by paying his respects at the monument to independence leader Bernardo O'Higgins. Bolivian President Luis Arce said that the people would not allow a new attack against democracy, after receiving the support of different social sectors in the Department of Santa Cruz and the rest of the country. Through his social media accounts, the Bolivian head of state thanked the social organizations for their support towards his administration given the recent coup attempts. Likewise, the social sectors denounced that the protests in the city of Santa Cruz are part of a policy to damage the country's economy. Given these destabilizing actions, the organizations requested the public prosecutor as well as judicial authorities to bring justice and to find those responsible for the 2019 coup. United States President Joe Biden and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau are in Mexico for the North American Leaders Summit, in which they are scheduled to discuss relevant issues with their Mexican counterpart. One of the highly sensitive topics to be discussed between the heads of state is migration. Ahead of the summit, Biden announced a major shift in U.S. migration policy, which has been negotiated with Mexico and includes sending 30,000 migrants from Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Venezuela back across the border. The Mexican president said in the lead-up to the summit that he would consider accepting more migrants than previously announced. Among other key issues to be addressed are climate change, energy, and supply chains. The North American Leaders Summit has begun on Monday and will continue on Tuesday, January 10th. In the United States, Republican Kevin McCarthy was sworn in as Speaker of the House following a historic post-midnight election on a 15th ballot, overcoming holdouts from his own ranks and a week of chaos. After 4 days of exhausting ballots, McCarthy flipped more than a dozen conservative holdouts to become supporters, including the chairman of the Chamber's Freedom Caucus. The California Republican took the oath of office and then was finally able to swear in newly elected lawmakers who had been waiting for an entire week for the chamber to formally open and for the 2023-2024 session to begin. Thousands of nurses at two New York City hospitals went on strike on Monday after contract negotiations stalled over pay and staffing levels, a move that caused one of the facilities to postpone procedures and appointments. According to the New York State Nurses Association, the walkout involves more than 7,000 nurses at Montefiore Medical Center in the Bronx and Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. The strike forced the healthcare centers to reschedule all elective surgeries and procedures and to postpone appointments at ambulatory locations. The nurses are demanding increased staffing, better wages, and an end to benefit cuts. Since beginning contract negotiations 4 months ago, the union had been able to reach agreements or new contracts for nurses at 7 other New York City hospitals. However, the negotiations have been stalled. The United Nations Secretary General appealed on Monday to developed nations to make good on their promise of $100 billion a year to support climate action in developing countries. Antonio Guterres' comments came as part of his opening remarks at the UN conference aimed to help Pakistan cope with the fallout of the flooding that killed more than 1,000 people and displaced about 8 million. Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif joined the UN Secretary General in person at the conference, while other world leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron, took part virtually. With climate change-related disasters displacing more people than armed conflicts, the Secretary General also encouraged greater efforts to ensure that within 5 years every country in the world has early warning systems for climate catastrophe. In Indonesia, a massive 7.5 magnitude earthquake was recorded in the Arafura Sea, 308 kilometers from Tual City on the Tanimbar Islands in the nation's Maluku region. The U.S. Geological Survey said it erupted at a depth of 91 kilometers below sea level. According to Indonesia Meteorological, Climatological and Geophysical Agency, the earthquake was recorded at 37 minutes past midnight local time. The agency also issued tsunami warnings on all coasts and nearby islands and asked citizens of several locations to go to elevated areas. So far, no casualties nor injuries have been reported. And we have more news coming up after a final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back from the South. Rwandan President Paul Kagame said on Monday that the country can no longer accept refugees from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In eastern DRC, a region rich in mineral resources, fighting between government forces and rebels from the M23 movement, a former Tutsi rebellion, has increased tensions with neighboring Rwanda, which the DRC accuses of supporting the militia. According to the UN High Commission for Refugees, in November 2022, Rwanda had some 72,000 Congolese refugees. In a report published in December, UN-mandated experts said they had collected substantial evidence of direct intervention by the Rwandan Defense Forces on the territory of the DRC, at least between November 2021 and October 2022. Diplomatic initiatives have been launched to try to resolve the crisis in eastern DRC, where an East African regional force led by Kenya is being deployed. In Kenya, 5 suspects appeared in court on Monday accused of involvement in the death of a prominent LGBTQ activist. The body of Edwin Kiprotich Kipruto, popularly known as 25-year-old Edwin Chiloba, was found last week stuffed in a metal box on a roadside in western Kenya. The country's National Commission on Human Rights said that Chiloba's death followed the unsolved murders of several other right advocates for sexual minorities, Sheila Lumumba, Erika Chandra, and Joash Mosoti. Homosexuality remains a crime in Kenya, with penalties that include imprisonment of up to 14 years. Gabon's President Ali Bongo names Monday the country's first female vice president. The holder of the nation's second position is 59-year-old Rose Christian Raponda, who had served until her nomination as prime minister and who was also a former mayor of the capital, Libreville, and minister of defense. Osoka Raponda fills in an office that had been vacant since 2019, making history for a second time, since in July 2020 she became the country's first female prime minister. She had to navigate the delicate political scene as prime minister after a coup attempt in 2019, while Bongo was on prolonged medical leave following a stroke. Former Minister Alain Claude Billy Baines will replace Oso Carraponda as prime minister and is supposed to form a new government. Gabon is one of the African countries gearing up towards presidential elections this year. The Palestinian government accused Israel of committing piracy and systematic looting in the occupied territories and warned that a social outburst could be triggered by such crimes. Opening a cabinet meeting in the city of Ramallah, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammad Jayeh criticized the recent anti-Palestinian measures approved by Tel Aviv. These include the seizure of some $39 million in tax funds collected on behalf of the Palestinian government and the adoption of measures against organizations that promote any activity hostile to the Jewish state, including political and legal action. This comes after the Palestinian National Authority called for a vote in the United Nations General Assembly on the Israeli occupation. Jayeh affirmed that despite this, the Israeli occupier will not discourage the people in the political, diplomatic, and legal struggle to achieve their self-determination and independence. Syria hosted this weekend numerous Syrian, Palestinian, and Iranian events to mark the third anniversary of the assassination of the commander of the Al-Quds Force of the Iranian Islamic Revolution Guard Corps, Lieutenant General Qasem Soleimani. A grateful and evaluating gesture to the role played by Soleimani in support of the Palestinian cause and the anti-terrorist struggle on Syrian soil. Our correspondent in Damascus, Hisham Wanos, with the details.
Contrary to the wishes of Washington and Tel Aviv, the axis of resistance has become more powerful because the assassination of Major General Soleimani and his comrades marked its new birth. This was stated by the participants in the forum organized by the Damascus-based Arab Writers Union and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad movement on the occasion of the third anniversary of their assassination. We consider that the attack against Qasem Soleimani is an attack against Syria, as well as against the entire axis of resistance, which is why through this tribute to his memory, we ratify the attachment to his fighting legacy, and we promise to remain firm in defense of our cause, following the example of leader and martyr Qasem Soleimani. Palestine was always present in the heart of the martyr Qasem Soleimani because all of his missions were a preparation for the great battle of liberation of occupied Palestine, a work that Palestinians living in Syria captured in an artistic exhibition in Damascus that gathers different stages of their struggle against the Zionist project. All the peoples of this region, such as the Syrian, Yemeni, Palestinian, and Iraqi people, suffer from occupation and intervention, and therefore we value very highly the support that the free people of the world can offer us, as did the martyr Soleimani, to whom we pay tribute today through this art exhibition of Palestinian artists living in Syria. On the other hand, the Iranian diplomatic mission in Syria, together with the Syrian authorities, marked the date in an act organized at the Al-Assad National Library in Damascus. The event highlighted the figure of Soleimani as an inspiring man and exceptional leader who left a lasting imprint on all parts of the resistance. It is true that we are going through a difficult situation, but this situation would have been worse now if it were not for the sacrifices made by both Qasem Soleimani and the Syrian Arab Army. And that is why we pay tribute to made it possible for us to recover our safety in Syria and in other countries in the region. General Soleimani played a crucial role in the fight against terrorism in Syria, Iraq, and the West Asian region, a prominent role that the people of the area claim led to his assassination on January 3, 2019 in Baghdad during a U.S. airstrike ordered by former President Donald Trump, which they claim is evidence of their allegation that Washington is the main sponsor of the terrorist gangs that plague the countries of the axis of resistance.
Hisham Wanos, teleSUR, Damascus, Syria. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.